Hello, my most amazing artists, and welcome back to part 2 of our robot Collagraph art project, rubbing and printing. So from the title you might have guessed, we're going to be doing 2 different art projects with our Collagraphs that we made. The first one will be a rubbing and the second one will be a print. So let's start with the rubbing. You are going to need your Collagraph that's dry and some crayons that have the wrapping peeled off so they're naked. And you're going to need some paper. So I'm just going to use computer paper for this, but any type of paper should work as long as it's thin enough. So gather up those materials for rubbing and meet me back here. Okay, so the first project that we're going to do with our finished Collagraphs we're going to make a basic texture rubbing. You've probably done this before using leaves and crayons and paper. It's basically the same concepts. So I have my Collagraph right here. He's all dry and he's ready to be turned into a rubbing. And this is where all that awesome texture we glued on top of him is going to really shine. Now you might have noticed that I added a little bit of tape on my Collagraph. So I taped it down onto my table to make sure that he doesn't shift while I am doing my rubbing. Now of course you can do a rubbing without taping this down to your table, but you'll have to really hold your paper down and your Collagraph down with a lot of pressure so when you're rubbing it does not shift, because then things might be a little bit off. So if you do have some tape on hand, a little bit of tape on it will help keep it secure and stop it from moving, and it makes your rubbing just a little bit easier. Okay, so my Collagraph is taped down. I've got my crayons ready. I've got my paper ready. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper, I'm going to lay it over the top of my Collagraph, and I can use my sense of touch and I can feel the texture through the paper. I can tell where my Collagraph is laying. Now I'm still going to have to use my helper hand to hold that paper down, and I'm going to take one of my naked crayons. I think I'm going to start with blue. Now you cannot just color normal with a crayon like this. For a rubbing, your crayon needs to be laying down flat like he is taking a nap. And then you're going to use your pinchers to pinch onto that crayon, and you're going to drag that crayon over your Collagraph. You can switch directions. You want to try to make sure you're getting all of your robot so that he is showing through. You might miss some spots. You might have to go and feel to make sure where he is. I'm dragging my crayon in different directions, but he is always staying flat and on his side. There you go, I just made a rubbing. I'm going to do this again with a different color. Maybe I'll try and experiment with 2 different colors. I discovered something kind of fun when I was experimenting with this rubbing just now. So you can do one color and it looks just fine. I mean, the nice thing is if you mess up on this, you can try it again until you get really good at it. But what I ended up doing is I did one color and then I tried a second color on top, and it shifted just a little bit, but I got like a cool shadow effect. Can you guys kind of see that? I really like how that kind of turned out. I did it in orange and black, and I did it in red and blue. I think that looks really cool. So this is just a basic rubbing, but you can get a lot of cool variations by experimenting with layering different colors. Like look at the shadows on those buttons. I think that's so cool. So kind of have fun with this. Make as many rubbings as you can before you move on to the printing part of this project. So have fun experimenting with rubbing. You can pause this video, and then once you're done, you can come back and watch how you can turn your Collagraph into a water-based print. Wow, I thought those rubbings were really fun. I love the different variations you can get in a project with just crayons and texture. So now that we're done with our rubbings, we can move on to the second activity, which is turning our Collagraphs into prints. So you need your Collagraph again, and we're going to be making this into a printing plate where you can pull prints from it. So in order to make this into a printing plate, we need some supplies. So for the print activity, you are going to need tinfoil, washable markers, and paper. I'm just using computer paper again. And finally, some water. So any type of water is going to work. You can use a spray bottle, you can use a wet paper towel. I'm using a bowl of water with a sponge. So gather up those materials and let's make a print. This is going to be awesome. Okay, my most amazing artists, are you ready for some real magic art? Next, we are going to take our Collagraph and we are going to turn it into a print. And when you're print making, that means you're making copies of something. So, my Collagraph is going to be my printing plate. And in order to reuse my printing plate or my Collagraph, I need to give it a surface that can be reused after I color it. So, you're going to need some tinfoil for this. Now, I've got some tinfoil that I just took off the roll. On a tinfoil sheet, there is usually a very shiny side and another side that is matte. So this would be my really shiny reflective side, and this side is my matte side. Now, they both look pretty similar. It doesn't really matter that much. It's pretty close. They both look shiny to me, but I'm going to take the slightly shinier side. I want that to be the side that is facing out towards me. So my matte side, this side, is going down on top of my Collagraph. Now I need to be gentle with this. I don't want to rip it. So I'm going to gently smooth my tinfoil over my Collagraph. And as I'm doing this, and this works really well if you use this part of your hand because it is very soft, I'm going to smooth it. I'm starting at one point and I'm going all the way up to the edges, and you can start to see the edges of my Collagraph showing. And you can start to see all those textures on his body popping up. So I can kind of have a good look at it now, and I'm going to carefully, with one hand, hold it and kind of pick it up and grab onto the cardboard Collagraph underneath and hold onto it and flip it over just like this, trying not to shift it. And I'm going to fold my edges, and as I'm folding, I'm holding this down with my fingertips and I'm folding this piece over and I'm pulling it up so this edge is tight against the edge of my cardboard. Just like that. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to pull it until that edge is tight against my cardboard. And I'm going to do that on all four sides. I'm going to flip it over now, and I have to continue smoothing this out. So I'm going to take my finger, I'm going to smooth out so I can see all of the details around the edges. Be careful that you don't rip your tinfoil. If you rip it, you're going to have to get a new piece and do this all over again. So my tinfoil is all on, it is smoothed out. I can see all of my robot and his textures. Now I can start adding the color. The color that we're going to be using to add with is going to be washable markers. I'm just using Crayola. It has to be washable. Permanent will not work to make your print. So I'm going to start coloring. The more color I add, the better my print will turn out. And I'm thinking about colors that are going to look really good against each other, maybe complementary colors, or warm colors and cool colors. Maybe my robot will be cool colors and my background will be warm colors. I want my robot to be popping out from the background. I wouldn't do a blue robot and then a purple background. That would be too similar and he wouldn't really pop out. So what I think I'm going to do is that cool color robot, like I said, with a warm color background. So I'm taking my marker and I'm going to color in all of the robot. And you want to be careful that when I'm coloring, I'm kind of not resting my hand over areas where I colored because this is going to be very smeary. And I'm going to go around my buttons, I'm going to color those in different colors. And I want to fill in all of the positive and negative space on here. So I'll be doing all of my robot and all of my background. I have finished coloring my robot in with my washable markers, and I stuck with that warm and cool color palette. You'll notice that I did a little bit of blending in the background with red, orange, and yellow to kind of make it look fiery. So now we get to start the cool magic trick part of this. I'm going to move this over. You are going to need some paper and water for this step. Now I've got a little bowl here. I'm going to be using a bowl of water with a sponge in it. You can use a sponge if you have one in a bowl of water, or a spray bottle will work. Maybe a damp paper towel will work. But I'm going to take move this over more. I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to squeeze out all that water from it. I do not want to have a soaking wet piece of paper. I want a damp paper, which means that it's sort of wet. So now I'm going to take my sponge, I'm going to hold my paper with one hand, and I'm going to wipe the water onto my paper. I'm going to get the whole thing damp. I think I could use a little more water. Squeeze some of it out. My sponge can have a little bit of water in it, actually. Doesn't need to have completely squeezed out. But we are going to be dampening our paper. And if it doesn't work out, our print doesn't work out the first time, that's okay, because you can try it again, and it will be amazing. Okay, I'm going to move this over. This is pretty damp, so I'm going to kind of carefully peel it up, and I'm moving my print over here, and I'm going to take my damp piece of paper, and the side that I just put all the water on, I'm going to flip over, so that side's, the watery side is going down on top of my robot. And now I'm going to gently, I'm holding this down because you don't want your paper to move. So I'm holding it down with one hand and I'm gently rubbing my robot. All right, what do you think? Are we ready? We're gonna peel off our paper. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing! That is awesome! So what we just did is created a successful print. Once you pull the image off of your printing plate, it is called a print. This is really cool, and you can try this in multiple different ways. You can take a piece of paper towel and you can clean off your printing plate and you can recolor it with new colors and do this process again. So we just made 4 art projects in one lesson with these Collagraphs. The first one, we made the Collagraph. The second is we made awesome rubbings with that Collagraph using crayons and paper. The third was we turned our Collagraph into a printing plate with tinfoil and markers and water, and we were able to pull prints or copies from our printing plate of our robots. And the final project that you can do with your Collagraph is you can color in that tinfoiled surface with colored Sharpies or permanent markers to create a permanent art piece. But it's really so awesome that we were able to create so many different variations of artwork from one project. Now remember, the Collagraphs can be open to anything, so if you really enjoyed the rubbing or the print or making the Collagraph itself, you can make multiple of these with different themes or subjects. Like you could make a Collagraph of birds or bugs, cityscapes, and you can repeat all of these processes with a different Collagraph. So really the options are endless because you just need a cereal box and some glue and scissors to create your Collagraph, and then you can do all these other things with it. So I hope you have fun doing your Collagraph, your rubbings, and your print, and I can't wait to see the projects you guys create. So remember to snap a picture and send it to me. Have fun. Goodbye, my most amazing artists.